Mwah! I have stolen this channel. It's mine. Mine. And now, all of you have to listen to me talk about Disney princesses forever. And now...
No, Jax, please stop acting like a supervillain. This isn't your channel now. It's still my channel. You're just taking over for a video.
Fine.
Yeah, so, in case y'all are new here, hi, I'm Pidge, this is Jax, and about a month ago, we made a video wherein I tried to explain to this one the whole history of Stampy Longhair.
We plan to make another one with me doing the explaining this time at some point in the future, but...
Yeah, so last week I was at a convention the whole time, and now I'm really tired and don't have the energy to make a normal video, so I basically begged this one, Jax, please, make a slideshow for a simpler kind of video. And so this absolute MVP threw together a slideshow in like 2 days. And now, I'm very excited to talk about some Disney princesses. Let's go! I don't want to have to make this part of the video. This part of the video was added days before you see this. I don't want to take too much of your time for this, but I am aware of the SAG-AFTRA Screen Actors Guild strike currently going on, in addition to the Writers Guild strike also going on. I don't want to spend too much time on it, but I felt it was important to mention, and I am aware that Disney has come under fire for mistreatment of their creators. So, with that being said, I do not support Disney corporate. I just think the movies that Disney Creative makes are fun. I have more information as well as links to support the strike in both the pinned comment and the description. If you want to check either of them out, go for it. The actors and writers always need more support because they cannot work during the strike, but they still need good working conditions. So now, back to your regularly scheduled rambling.
So, first slide, an examination of the Disney princess, because that's what this is gonna be. The title of this video probably also says that, so you don't need me to tell you any more about that one. Next up, credits, because the first credit you see at @BabdaKate on TikTok is the reason I came up with this topic, because they've been making some great videos about the Disney Princess brand, and I thought I ought to give them a little shout out. So go check out their page, they've got some great videos on this topic as well. Next, what is a Disney princess? Great question, and the first one we need to answer. A Disney princess is, most simply, a character from the Disney Princess brand. And it's important to note that that being part of that brand doesn't necessarily require them to be a princess. Like Mulan, she's not ever a princess. Or necessarily Disney, because Merida is Pixar, so that's an important note to make. Next, who are the Disney princesses? The everlasting question, despite the fact that it is, in fact, on Disney's website. It's the one thing that they officially will confirm for us, is that these are the princesses. So, that's my source for this. It is Snow White, Cinderella, Aurora, Ariel, Belle, Jasmine, Pocahontas, Mulan, Tiana, Rapunzel, Merida, Moana, and Raya. And that is all the way from, like, I think the 30s? The 1930s?
Yeah, 30s.
All the way up to 2 years ago, so that's a lot of princesses, guys.
Yep.
It's a long time for things to happen, and things do happen. First, Snow White. You've heard of Snow White. I guarantee it. I would stake money on it if I had any. I do not, but still I will say that I would.
Yeah, I'm in the same camp.
Yes. And more so, your mom probably knows who she is. Probably even your grandmother, because her film came out December 21st, 1937. She's been around a while. And that film was the story of this princess, Snow White, whose evil queen stepmother was very evil and had this magic mirror, and she was very obsessed with being the most beautiful in all the land. And then the mirror told her, hey, you're not anymore, your stepdaughter is. And so the evil queen was like, ooh, that's not good. Huntsman, kill my stepdaughter. And the huntsman was like, chased her into the woods, and then he was like, I don't want to kill her, actually. left. So he didn't kill her, but she still had to run away because the queen was going to kill her otherwise. And so she went to live with 7 little men, some dwarves. So yeah, she lives with those 7 little men, and her stepmother keeps trying to kill her. And she tries several different things. I think one of them was like a poison cone. I think in one of the versions of the story there was a poison dress. That was weird. But eventually, she gets her with a poison apple, which is a very classic image that I don't have for you guys, but you know it, so you don't need it. And she falls into a coma, seemingly dead to the world. And the dwarves put her in this glass box and they warn her. And then this guy, this Prince Charming? Prince Charming.
As far as we're concerned, Prince Charming. I don't know or care if he has an actual name.
He has no personality, so he gets Charming. That's the name he gets. And he finds this sleeping girl, and he's like, I am in love with this unconscious girl, and so I'm gonna kiss her. And then he does. And then that wakes her up, and they live happily ever after. Because that is super logical, guys. She is one of the founding members of the brand, meaning that she existed before the brand was created. You might be surprised by how many there are. Next, Cinderella. You know the Cinderella story, okay? Even if you don't know the details, you know the basic story of Cinderella. Her film came out March 4th, 1950, and she is the archetypal Disney princess within the brand. Her story involves her being essentially a servant for her stepmother and stepsisters, and then they go to the ball, and she's sad because she also wants to go to the ball, but they won't let her. And then the fairy godmother comes and is like, you can go to the ball and wear this beautiful dress and have this pumpkin carriage and all this stuff. We'll be back by midnight. And in some versions of the story she tells her why, and some she doesn't. I don't remember what happens in the animated version. If you do, great.
Tell us in the comments. Yell at us in the comments. Crucify us in the comments. We need the engagement. Please.
Or be nice to us in the comments, that also works.
Either way, give us the engagement.
Indeed. So Cinderella, she goes to this ball and she's dancing with the prince and they're in love. Because love at first sight, Disney loves that one. And then the clock strikes midnight and she has to go. And this shoe that's supposedly a perfect fit for her and no one else falls off on the steps. Because that's super logical.
It's a perfect fit that apparently is 100% perfect for her foot and never fits and doesn't fit anyone else's perfectly, and yet it falls off. And then when the dress disappears, the shoe doesn't, I guess because she wasn't wearing it.
Yeah, but the other shoe also stays because shoes, I guess, are more important than anything else.
Huh.
The carriage, back to a pumpkin, dress, back to rags, the horseman, back to mice or rats, whichever one, doesn't matter. But the shoes, they just continue to exist. I don't know why.
Also, are you gonna touch on the dress right now?
No.
Okay,
The dress is for the later slide.
Then, little bit of foreshadowing, you may notice that the dress on the doll here and the dress in that picture are not the same color.
They aren't.
We'll get to that.
We will get to that. I guarantee it. Cinderella, founding member of the brand as well. She was around well before it was formed, along with her friend Snow White and her friend Aurora. She's also very iconic. You've at least heard of her or seen a picture of her, I promise. And she is yet another founding member of the brand, with her film coming out January 29th, 1959, with an interesting phenomenon wherein people call her the character Sleeping Beauty, when that is the name of her film, not her character. She is Aurora. That's Aurora, guys. The story, basically, she was born, and the king and queen, her parents, were holding a party about, and they invited everyone except Maleficent. We've got a dragon toy there to pretend to be Maleficent.
It's totally Maleficent, you guys, I promise.
Ignore the green and lack of purple. And with that, Maleficent's not happy that she didn't get invited, right? She's like, oh, you should have invited me. So all the fairies are giving Aurora these gifts about how she'll be beautiful and smart and sing really well and all this stuff. Because that matters when you're newborn. That's what you should think about as beauty, guys.
Totally.
Mm-hmm.
Totally.
And Levison is like, yeah, so on her birthday, sometimes it's 18th birthday, sometimes it's 16th birthday, we're gonna go with 18th. You are going to prick your finger and die. And the king and queen don't like this one bit, and Maleficent leaves, because she's like, I'm done with y'all. See you when she's dead. And then the last fairy to go, who went last because she's not great at giving gifts and stuff, is like, my gift is that she'll actually just fall asleep, potentially eternally, but the thing is, she can be woken up by true love's kiss. And also, we're all gonna fall asleep. Nobody's gonna be awake when she falls asleep, well, within the kingdom, obviously.
I'm honestly not sure the whole kingdom falling asleep possibly forever is better than a single princess dying, but whatever.
One of them has the potential of being undone slightly. Mm-hmm. But anyway, so she lives her life in this cottage in the woods with these fairies, and at some point she meets Prince Philip and they're in love. Despite, I think, maybe talking to each other the one time, because that makes super loads of sense. Love at first sight, guys. You gotta believe in it to like Disney. So yeah, and then she does end up pricking her finger. Who would have thunk it? It happens. And she falls asleep, and then Prince Philip saves her. He's like, oh, I'm gonna save her. And Maleficent's like, no, you're not. And he's like, I'm gonna kill you. And she's like, no, you're not. And turns into a dragon. And then he kills her. And then he saves Aurora by kissing her. Yes, she is still asleep. That's just how we roll here. Kiss sleeping women. It'll totally work out for you guys. And yeah, that's the story of Aurora, and they all live happily ever after the end, because why end a Disney movie on a low note when you can always end it with happily ever after? Which is probably why a lot of people... So, Ariel, the Little Mermaid. You've probably heard a lot about her recently with her live action remake coming out, which I thought was quite good. I enjoyed it a lot.
I haven't seen it. According to this one, it's good and I trust his judgment, so I'll check it out when it comes to streaming.
Yes, I enjoyed it a lot. The original film, her animated film, released November 17th, 1989, making her yet another founding member of the brand, and with that comes the plot of her film. So she's a mermaid, and her dad doesn't like humans. So she wants to be with the humans, and her dad's like, no. Her dad's King Triton, by the way, don't know if I mentioned that. And he's like, no humans for you. And she's like, I don't care, I'm gonna go save this prince and fall in love with him while I'm at it, and then sing some songs about how I want to be part of their world, and I'm gonna have all these treasures and troves and gadgets and gizmos aplenty. And so yeah, her dad finds out and he's like, how dare you go to the surface and save a prince, how horrible of you, I'm gonna destroy your treasures. And then he does, and that upsets her. And then Ursula, who is in some versions her aunt.
Yeah, apparently. I didn't know that until the last time we filmed, because that's not in the original animated version.
Anyhow, so she's like, hey, you want to go to the surface world, right? And Ariel's like, yeah, I do. Why do you ask? And she's like, hey, I could bring you to the surface world, send you up there, give you legs and all of it. At a price. And Ariel's like, what's the price? And Ursula's like, your voice. And Ariel's like, I kind of like my voice. I'm a big fan of it. And Ursula really super pressures her, and then Ariel's like, okay, I really want to be a human, so okay. And then Ursula's like, oh, by the way, almost forgot to mention, you're gonna have to get the prince to kiss you by this day, or you'll come back down here and be my servant forever. Woo! And then Ariel goes up, she's human, she forgets, at least in the live action version, Ursula curses her to forget she needs the prince to kiss her. So she's just there.
That's not in the animated version either.
Anyhow, so this goes on for a while where they're definitely falling in love, but they do not kiss. But it's getting too close for Ursula, so she disguises herself as a human, uses Ariel's voice because Prince Eric, who is the one that Ariel is falling in love with, he still remembers the girl who saved him and her voice. And he's trying to find her, and the girl who saved him is Ariel, but she does not have her voice, right? And so when Ursula shows up with her voice, Eric immediately falls in love with her, sort of, but that's partially because of a spell,
yeah,
and it's weird.
at least the animated version makes it very clear that what happened was, in addition to her voice, she also very much did cast a spell on him.
Which is more logical than him just immediately marrying her because she had that voice, which is what the live action did. So, they're gonna get married, and Ariel's not happy about this, and so eventually she disrupts the wedding one way or another, and then Ursula gets upset, and there's fighting, loads of fighting, Triton gets involved, more fighting, they go underwater for a bit, more fighting, Eric gets involved, more fighting, eventually...
Magic wand, make my monster grow.
Eee! And then, eventually, Ursula gets impaled by a ship and electrocuted.
She was, as she said herself, the queen of the oceans, and yet she got killed by a boat. Not gonna question that one.
Oh my goodness. It's like Scar's death, guys.
Yeah, it is!
Severely traumatizing. And you know what else is like Scar?
Her whole character!
They're the same, guys.
Scar and Ursula are the same character!
They're the same
Oh my
character.
god!
They're the same character. They're the same. They're, in most versions, an aunt or uncle of the main character and jealous of their sibling, and they want to rule their kingdom that their sibling rules, and their sibling is this perfect guy, and he has a child, and that child is just happy-go-lucky and confused and doesn't know why anything is wrong in the world, and then they take advantage of that kid.
Yeah?
And then they die in horribly gruesome and traumatizing ways for Disney. Anyway, that's Ariel. Happily ever after. The end. Triton gets on board with her being a human, and she marries Eric at some point, presumably.
Yeah.
Next, Belle, one of my favorites,
Mine too.
who had her movie debut November 22nd, 1991, which is conveniently my birthday, although several years before my actual birthday. She is another one of the founding members, and her story is, she's still well known, pretty well known, but she's slightly less well known than some of the others. At least in terms of the story. She lives in a quiet little village in which not much happens, and she just reads all day, and everyone thinks she's weird, but she's just chilling. And Gaston, super in love with her, wants to marry her. She doesn't want to marry him. She does not like Gaston. So eventually her dad, who's this crazy inventor guy, ends up in the Beast's castle somehow. I don't quite remember. He's being held captive by the Beast.
I think he's looking for something, I don't know.
Probably looking for something. He ends up there and he's being held captive, and that's the important part. And so Belle goes to save her dad because she's very sweet. And then the Beast is like, hey, you can save him by taking his place. And her dad is like, Belle, don't do it. And she's like, I'm gonna do it. And then she does it, and then we find out the Beast's story, which is that he was cursed by this witch to be a beast, and his court, or whatever, they were cursed to be household objects of various kinds. And then there's this rose, and if he doesn't fall in love by the time the rose loses all its petals, he's gonna be a beast, and they're gonna be household items forever. And so he needs to fall in love. And the household items need him to fall in love, so they're trying to make him fall in love, and they think Belle's a perfect opportunity for this. And then they do start to fall in love. And then things happen, because Belle's dad, he ran back to the village to tell the villagers about the evil beast. And so Gaston, after eventually deciding to believe him, decides to lead a charge against the beast. They fight. I think Gaston does die, and
Yeah,
the beast
he does.
almost dies. And Belle is not very happy about him dying, and she confesses her love to him, and blah blah blah, he's alive, and then they all turn back to human. Woo! And that was the end of Belle. They live happily ever after. She probably at some point marries the Beast. And after Belle comes another princess, believe it or not. No, we're actually going to go into Wreck-It Ralph now and talk about Wreck-It Ralph. Nope, Jasmine. We're going to talk about Jasmine, guys. Because she's pretty cool. I like her. I haven't seen her film much, but she's alright. Her film, Aladdin, because she's not the protagonist of this film at all. That's Aladdin. He's the one the story's about. He's the title character.
Yeah.
But this film, released November 25th, 1992, which is almost exactly a year after the release of Beauty and the Beast. So, there's this guy Aladdin, he's a street rat.
Riff Raff, I don't buy that. Except he totally is, though.
He is. Just a bit. He does only seem to steal out of necessity, so not morally wrong in it. but he is a street rat just a bit. Yeah.
Mhm.
Anyway, so he ends up finding this genie. And I think in the background, Jasmine is having this plot about her dad wanting her to get married. And her not wanting to.
I think something like that, yeah.
Something like that. And she has a tiger. Tiger's
Yeah.
cool.
I remember the tiger.
I like tigers. Cool.
Mhm. Tigers are cool.
Anyway, so he finds this genie and he's like, I want to be a prince. And the genie's like, okay, dude. Genie's cool, by the way.
Yes.
Very fun guy.
Genie's awesome. We love
Very
the genie.
fun. We love the genie. And so he becomes Prince Ali. And he and Jasmine are flirting. And stuff happens. Wishes get used. Things happen. I don't remember the plot of this movie entirely. But Jafar is there and he's evil. And I think he's like Jasmine's uncle.
Possibly. I don't know.
A lot of aunts and uncles. But anyway, yeah, stuff happens. Eventually, Aladdin gets to be happy. He frees the genie and everything. After lying and deceiving his way right into the castle and getting the princess. That is a quote from Thomas Sanders. Because I like that quote. He says it in a real fun way. I like it. So yeah, story of Jasmine and Aladdin. Woo! Happily ever after, the end. Do we see her dad ever? We probably see her dad. Do we see her mom? Does she have a mom?
I don't think so. Disney parents are usually dead. I call it the Thomas and Martha Wayne effect. It's when you have your protagonist but be dead so that you can give the heroes angst factor. Jax is currently having a mental breakdown over that phrase.
It's great, guys. It's great. This is great. Great news. So her mom is probably dead. Her dad, maybe not. I don't remember. Tell me in the comments. Here we get to accuracy in films.
Oh boy!
I'm not going to tell you the plot to Pocahontas. Because this is not a film I like, one bit. Haven't watched it, never will. It's not accurate. I know it's not. I've seen enough clips and heard enough songs. It has some good songs, I will admit.
If you have nostalgia for it, if you like the music, whatever, more power to you. But it is racially insensitive and also horribly inaccurate. When the people arrived, Pocahontas was a child in real life.
Very, very young. If you want to learn about Pocahontas' story, I invite you to look into real Pocahontas' story. Her story, I think, is one much more worth hearing. This film, of very questionable accuracy, came out June 23rd, 1995. She's another founding member of the brand, and she'll be here this whole time, so just moving on from her to more fun princesses, like Mulan. My favorite. Her?
Totally not just because she's 100% trans, and if you disagree, you're wrong.
Not at all because of how much I relate to Reflection. Not at all, guys. Nope, not one bit. Not at all. Her film came out June 5th, 1998. Coincidence that it's in June? Coincidence? I think not. I think not, you guys. She is the final founding member of the brand, and absolutely my favorite. Her story is a fun one. I like it. So she does not want to be very girly, and everyone's like, oh, you gotta be a girl and find a man, and she's like, ooh, but what if I'd rather not, though? And they're like, too bad.
You'll bring honor to us all.
Indeed, very fun song and sequence.
Scarier than the Undertaker, we are meeting our matchmaker.
Indeed. And then Reflection happens, the love Reflection. And then her dad gets drafted. And he's old and injured, and she's like, ooh, that's not gonna work out good. So she decides to disguise herself as a boy and take his place. Which she does, with sort of his blessing. He explicitly tells her not to do it, but then I think he also leaves his armor out for her.
Yeah, I think it was that situation of, you can't do it. I promise you can't do it. I'm definitely not leaving my armor out for you.
And then she cuts her hair with a sword, which is totally realistic, guys.
Well, it's totally badass. Let's just put it that way.
It's very cool. And so we're gonna follow the rule of cool for this one. I love the rule of cool. So, she disguises herself as this boy named Peng, and her ancestors, I think, give her this little dragon, and I love the dragon. Mushu, right?
Mushu. We love Mushu.
We love Mushu. Mushu's great. How dare they remove that little guy from the live action.
They removed so much from the live action, including all of the songs.
Which was sure a decision on there.
But then they didn't put in anything to replace the songs, so now they're just missing a bunch of big emotional moments. Plus they added this weird thing about Shay. If you want more information, watch the Sideways video about it.
So she's in the army, and first she's not really cut out for it, and what is his name? Li Shang.
Yes, that.
So we're gonna go with Shang. Li Shang, who is super in love with her. He's super in love with her, even when he thinks she's a boy. Because it came out in June, guys. That's all I'm gonna say.
Yep.
Anyways, so he thinks she's not cut out for it, right? And then she proves him wrong, and then they're fighting, and it's yay, and we have this great cast of other characters that I don't know their names at all, but they're fun.
Yeah.
They're loads of fun.
Yeah.
The other people in her little group of army, they're great. They're so much fun. I need to rewatch that film.
Yeah, it's such a good movie.
Anyway, so they're fighting, and then eventually, she gets found out as a girl. Oh no. Anyways, so Shang is super supposed to kill her. And then he doesn't because she saved his life. And then he tells her to leave because he's not going to break the rules that much for her just because he's in love with her. So then she goes home, but then the bad guy that's been there the whole time and is largely forgettable except for the pretty cool visual design.
He doesn't appear all that much. When he does appear, he's really intimidating.
Anyway, he's trying to kill the Emperor, and Mulan somehow finds out about this. I don't remember how, but she finds out, and so she goes to save the Emperor.
Yeah.
And then, with the help of her fellow army boys that were in her group, they save the Emperor, and then the Emperor's like, yo, you're cool, and then Shang is like, yo, you're cool, and then they're in love. Woo! Woo! The end. Happily ever after, until sequels. Next. Tiana. Love Tiana. Love Princess and the Frog.
Yeah.
Love it. Great film. Super awesome. Released December 11th, 2009. She was the first princess whose film was released after the creation of the brand, and therefore the first princess to be made with the intention of her becoming a princess. Fun fact for you. Another fun fact is her plot. Which is that she grew up in the maybe segregated South. It's never explicitly stated, but it's probably the segregated South. It was definitely the South.
Yeah.
And she grows
New
up...
Orleans, specifically.
Indeed. And she grows up there, and her parents, I guess, make dresses, because they're making a dress for this girl, Lottie. I looked it up. It's Lottie. Who's a great character. I love her. One of my favorite of the best friends of the Disney universe.
Yeah.
She's so much fun. I love her. She's great. And so, her and Tiana are the best of friends. And then we fast forward, and Tiana's dad is dead. He's dead. But she wants to be a restaurant owner. And she's working hard at that. And Lottie is like...
And she's almost there.
Almost there. And then Lottie is like, oh, Tiana, the prince is here, and I'm throwing a party, and the prince is gonna be there. Because there's this prince, Naveen. That's his name, Naveen. Yeah. And then we find out Naveen is stupid. Because he made a deal with Dr. Facilier, who is still one of my favorite Disney
Yes,
villains.
he is so cool.
He's so cool. And again, Naveen, not the brightest. Because he just makes a deal with him within, like, presumably maybe a day of being in the city.
Yeah.
You're just gonna come to America and immediately make a deal with a random creepy guy who talks to ghosts?
Anyway.
Use an ounce of common sense, but anyhow. So he turns into a frog.
Yeah.
And he needs a kiss from a princess to not be a frog.
And he's convinced that Tiana is a princess because of her awesome dress.
Which is a very nice dress. It looks very much like a Cinderella dress, but it's nice. She looks great in it. And so he insists, and she kisses him, and now she's also a frog. And then they're frogs for a while, and I don't remember what happens while they're frogs. What I do remember is that eventually they're not frogs, and they get married.
Yeah. I think they end up, like, resolving Oh, I remember what happens. They actually fall in love. They get married, which makes her a princess. So that now he's able to become a human again, as does she, because he was kissed by a princess.
Disney, guys. We love it. They got great logic.
Look, it's fun.
We meet some fun characters like a crocodile and a firefly. It's great.
Yeah.
And then Dr. Kazuya has another one of the traumatic Disney villain deaths where he literally gets dragged to hell.
Yeah.
Because that's great, guys.
Pure evil Disney villains are so cool because people often say that for a villain to be good they need to be sympathetic, whatever. No, the only thing that matters about a villain is that they oppose the hero and and you want to watch them defeated by the hero.
Great story. Wonderful. Happily ever after. The end. She does get her restaurant, so that's nice.
Mm-hmm.
Rapunzel. My girl.
Yeah.
I thought her film was called Rapunzel for the longest time. It was Tangled.
Frankly, it probably should be.
Tangled does not make sense.
Yeah. Anyway.
But anyway, Rapunzel. So, she is another one that was created after the brand. And her story is a fun one. So, she's this princess that was born, and her hair has magic powers. But Mother Gothel was using the flower that produced those powers to keep her young, and when the flower went away, she's like, oh, I need those powers anyway, so she kidnaps the baby, who is a princess, by the way. Her parents are the king and queen. So she straight up kidnaps the princess, because that's a smart thing to do, guys. And she takes her to this tower that she can't get out of, and her hair grows real long, real fast for some reason. And she brushes her hair and uses it to keep Mother Gothel looking young. And then eventually this guy Flynn Rider, he's a fugitive. He's on the run. He did steal Rapunzel's crown, although she doesn't know it's her crown. Well, tiara, but regardless. And Rapunzel, back in her tower, is like, Mother Gothel. Well, she just says mother. She's like, I want to go see the lanterns that they release every year on my birthday. It's probably got nothing to do with me, but I still want to go see them.
Little does she know.
It's got everything to do with her. They're releasing them for the Lost Princess, which, by the way, Mother Gothel, just tell her her birthday is a different day. Anyway, so, Flynn shows up while Mother Gothel is gone, and he climbs the tower, because that's a great idea. It's a very tall tower. She attacks him with a frying pan. She has a... What's the name of the things that change color?
Chameleon.
Chameleon. She has a
Chameleon.
Yes, she has a chameleon, and he's cute, and I forget his name. He's a chameleon, and he's great, and he's cute.
Yeah.
He's an adorable little guy.
We love him.
And so after Rapunzel attacks Flynn with the frying pan, eventually they agree that he's going to show her the real world in exchange for her doing something for him.
Possibly just letting him out of the tower.
That might be it. It might just be letting him live.
Because, I mean, it's not like he could really get down without her.
Yeah. Anyway, so after this, they go and they do that, and exploring happens. They get into some trouble, some antics. We meet a bunch of guys who are very burly, and we think they're going to be aggressive, but they all have dreams too.
Yeah, and it's
Fun.
sweet. We love it.
It's a nice little moment with a very fun song. And then Mother Gothel shows up, and they're being hunted down by Mother Gothel, because she's like, no, I need your hair. Super normal thing to need. And so eventually, they get to see the lights, but then, stuff happens. They end up back in the tower. Mother Gothel kills Flynn after he cuts Rapunzel's hair. Rapunzel doesn't like that. Brings Flynn back to life. Mother Gothel is dead at this point. She's because the hair got cut.
Yeah.
She just kind of disintegrates. Super gross.
My name for that is the Black Adam effect.
Basically, yeah, that's kind of it. Then she gets to go back to the castle, and she's the Lost Princess, and they're all very happy, and her and Flynn are in love. Mm-hmm. Yay! So, next up is Moana. She's one of my favorite princesses as well. I love her. She's great. One of my favorite movies. One of my mom's favorites, too. Her movie came out November 23rd, 2016. I saw it in theaters.
As did I. Didn't you, see it twice back to back?
That's a great story. And now, her story. So we start with not her, but with Maui stealing the heart of Te Fiti from Te Fiti, and then immediately losing said heart of Te Fiti. So not achieving his goal of stealing the heart with which to create life, instead just stealing it and probably losing it, which is not great. Because now Te Fiti is evil and angry and killing off all life. And so Moana's tribe, they go to this island, Motunui, and that's where they stay there now because they don't want to go out to where Te Fiti is killing everything. Which is fair enough. Moana doesn't like that. She wants to go out though. And her grandmother is on her side with this, but isn't like pushing it too much because she's weird. Her grandmother is weird. And with that, eventually her grandmother is about to die, and she's like, Moana, you will go find Maui. You will tell him I am Moana of Motunui, blah blah blah. You know the story. And she gives her the heart of Te Fiti, and so she says, you're gonna make Maui put the heart of Te Fiti back. Here's the heart of Te Fiti. And Moana's like, okay. And then her grandmother dies. And then her dad shows up. And then she just leaves. Says nothing, just leaves. So she goes out, she finds Maui, she's like, you're going to restore the heart of Te Fiti. And he's like, I'm not gonna restore the heart of Te Fiti. And she's like, yes, you are. And then they meet this crab, this very, very gay crab. It's never explicitly stated, but that crab is gay. I would put my life on it, okay?
Yeah. Didn't your mom say something about David Bowie?
Yeah, she heard the song Shiny. I was just listening to it, and she's like, that's David Bowie singing, right? And I was like, no. So yeah, basically they go back and forth, and this crab super tries to kill Maui, but that's how they get his hook back. But that's how they find out that his powers aren't what they used to be. And so now they're like, oh, we need to work out your powers and restore
Sharkad.
And restore the heart of Te Fiti. And then eventually they do, because this is Disney. Also, there's a chicken.
Yeah, chicken's fun.
Chicken's fun. A little goofy, a little annoying at times, but fun overall.
Yeah.
And so they eventually restore the heart of Te Fiti, and now Te Fiti is happy. And then Moana goes back to Motunui, and the group of Motunui, they become explorers again, and everyone's happy, and yay! Happily ever after, no love interest. Raya. Last but not least, Raya and the Last Dragon, released March 5th, 2021, making her the only princess whose film debuted both in theaters and on a streaming platform simultaneously. Little fun fact for you there that you probably already kinda knew. I'm not the most familiar with her story because I have not yet watched the film, although I've heard it's very good.
Yeah,
And
I've seen it. I think I enjoyed it. I don't remember it very well.
Yeah, I'm sure it's great. I looked up a plot summary online though. That is what I did because I still wanted to tell you a little bit about her. So basically, there's this dragon named Sisu?
I want to say, yeah.
And go with Sisu. And Sisu, she's the last dragon, and she defeats these evil creature things that I don't know the name of.
I don't remember.
And so she defeats them using this gem. But then all the people want the gem, and they're fighting over the gem. And then they form different groups, because they were once one big country, and then they form different groups because they all want the gem. And they split up. And then eventually, Raya, who is our... Raya, who is of the heart section of it, she, they're having this banquet thing, I don't know. She meets someone from another kingdom eventually. Stuff happens with the gem. It breaks into 5 pieces, 1 for each group. And so Raya takes her piece of the gem, and with it breaking, the evil things show up and start paralyzing people. She takes her piece, one of the pieces of this gem, and goes to find Sisu, so that Sisu can make a new gem. And Sisu reveals that, hey, I did not actually make the gem. I was wielding it on behalf of my now dead sisters, so we're gonna need those other pieces of the gem, because I can put it back together. We can put it back together, but I can't make you a new one. And so her and Sisu, they go on this adventure, and they're gonna get all the gems, and they meet new friends along the way, whose names I do not know. And then eventually they get to the person who initially betrayed her, causing the breakout of chaos and the breaking of the gem, and Raya does not trust her one bit. And Sisu is like, yo, you need to trust her. And Raya does not, and Sisu gets killed. And then, yes, more stuff happens. Eventually, Raya learns to trust this other girl, and then they put the gem back together and defeat the bad guys, and all of the dragons come back to life. And they all live happily ever after. The end. Another one without a love interest. Speaking of princesses without love interest, you might have noticed I didn't mention Merida.
I was about to say.
We'll get to her.
Also, I can't help but notice that neither the Frozen characters nor Mirabelle were mentioned here. Are you going to mention them later?
Indeed I shall.
Okay.
You shall see the people that I have not put right here. I shall
Let's
mention
go.
why they are not here. But first, the history of the Disney princess, and this is where I need my notes, because believe it or not, I don't just have all of this right off of my brain, okay?
So you did do most of this without your notes, which is really impressive.
I've done the whole story without my notes, but for like, I don't know dates and stuff, so we're gonna have some notes for this.
Fair enough.
Looks like a lot of notes? It's because it is. So, the brand was created in 2001 by Andy Mooney, and Snow White and Mulan were all part of the brand from the beginning, because that's right, 2001. If you were born in 2000 or before that, you are older than the concept of the Disney princess. Feel old. And so for the first 10 years, they developed the brand using those, I didn't count how many actually. Let's see, there's 13 total.
Whatever.
The first,
I'll put the number on screen.
this many princesses. They developed the brand using those, and it was going really well, because the idea was for them to sell more products, because if they put them all together, they would work together to gain popularity rather than individually, at which point eventually the popularity would sputter out as people stopped watching the film eventually. And it worked out really well. And one thing they did was that they noticed that everyone and their mother loved Cinderella, right? So they're like, what if all of the princesses were Cinderella? And so all of the princesses, included from Cinderella to Mulan, all sort of became Cinderella-type princesses, with the ball gowns and the sparkles and the poofs and the very traditional femininity. Which is an important thing to note, is that that has been part of the Disney princess brand from the very beginning. From the very beginning. Next up, an era of change. The 2010s come about, which is great. And here is where Tiana comes, 2009, but 2010s plus 2009. Tiana is the first princess to be made to be a princess. And we take note of the fact that she does quite rather have a Cinderella story, you know?
Yeah.
Although a more real version of it,
Yeah.
almost.
Like her personality is, of course, very different. She's a lot more proactive than Cinderella is, but the basic story of rags to riches is pretty similar.
Indeed. And of course she has that classic green ball gown, as well as wearing a blue dress, very reminiscent of how Cinderella is marketed wearing. And here the brand starts to go through changes. They have redesigns, such as the golden one that you see on your screen, or the dolls.
I'm not sure I'd ever seen before the first time we filmed this, so clearly it didn't stick around.
Yeah, the redesigns they weren't permanent. The golden one, I think, was for like an anniversary of some sort.
Okay, that makes sense.
I can't recall, but it was something. And you know, it's not horrible. It's actually it's a little pretty. It's a bit much for me, especially on the blonde princesses.
Yeah, I like it. It definitely, I'm glad it didn't stick around, but I like it as I really like the idea, we'll get to this later with them interacting, but I like the idea that sometimes they just, for anniversaries and stuff, they just decide to all wear matching really nice outfits that one day and then go back to their normal stuff afterwards.
Yeah, and it's cute, it's nice, it's not horrible.
It's fun.
And with the redesigns, they develop the main six, which are in these two pictures, although in the dolls, they also have Tiana, which is, from the older princesses, Cinderella, Aurora, and Snow White. And from the newer princesses, Belle, Ariel, and Jasmine, which is this perfect combination of the princesses that your mom loves and the princesses that you love. So it's a brand that you want bought for you, that your mom wants to buy for you. And so it was great because of that, and everyone loved it. And this was almost a golden era for the brand.
Hey.
Haha, I'm hilarious, guys. I make great jokes all the time. I'm super funny. And with that, and that was great. Everyone loved the brand, and everyone bought from the brand. But naturally, what with the golden era comes after the golden era. The future. The future of the brand is an interesting question. Because, as I've mentioned, the brand was built on this idea of the classic 1950s Cinderella, traditional femininity, ball gown and sparkles princess. But by the late 2010s and on, that wasn't quite so popular anymore, guys. You might have noticed. We don't like that as much anymore. And Disney did start to notice this as well, and they started making movies that were more modern. But then when they added the princess to the brand, they still weren't updating her as much as we would have liked. But here's the thing, eventually the Disney Princess brand has started playing around with this idea, and it's what if we don't like Cinderella anymore either? What if we hate her even? And they started by just poking fun with things like Enchanted, in which they just sort of poke fun at the classic story. And then they move on to things like Ralph Breaks the Internet, which outright mocks the original princess, but we'll get to that.
We'll get there later.
We'll get there on the very last slide, in fact. But that's just a preview, because we're going to talk about this more. Now here comes just a thing to notice while looking at Disney Princess merchandise, is that they're just kind of there. If you look closely, you'll see none of them are looking at each other or even at the same thing, unless it's just directly in front of them. They're all kind of there, just floating in this pink void, which is a name I got from @BabbyKate on TikTok, who made some great videos about the pink void. They're just kind of there, superimposed on top of each other, just layered together, but never really together or interacting, which was done to sort of maintain the integrity of them having entirely separate worlds. Because it wouldn't logically make sense for Tiana and Moana to interact. They were from entirely different worlds. How are they going to meet?
Although, if you pay super close attention, there are cameos in some of the more recent ones. Rapunzel appears in a blink and you'll miss it moment in Frozen, and Rapunzel's flower appears in another blink and you'll miss it moment in Moana. But those are the exceptions, not the rule.
Indeed, the general rule is we keep them separate, even though, fun fact, Disney Princess Ariel, for example, is not Ariel from the movie The Little Mermaid. She's Princess Ariel. They are separate characters created inspired by the film.
They're obviously going to be quite similar, but they're not going to be exactly the same. Now are you going to talk about the dress?
I believe the dress is next. Yes. And we're going to start with Cinderella, guys. You have in front of you here what appears to be the Cinderella we all know and love. Many of you might say, yeah, like the Cinderella I saw in the movie. It's not. That's Cinderella from the movie. You see the silver? The not blue? You see that? And also, you see the black choker, not the blue choker? The black choker? You see that? I see that. This here is my Cinderella doll in a holiday Barbie dress, just to give you guys an idea of what it might look like. Ignore the messy hair. I've had her since I was like 5. She's been well loved. This is what we could have had. You're telling me this isn't absolutely gorgeous? You're telling me you wouldn't have loved to play with this as a kid? I would have loved this.
Hey, editor Pidge here. I was getting footage for this video, and I realized that for a few shots, her dress actually does appear blue because of the lighting. My guess is that what happened here is that because of those shots, some Disney exec thought her dress was blue, and the marketing came from there. I might be totally wrong, but that feels right to me.
And you want to know why I think it's so important? Because blue is just, I have nothing against blue. I have nothing against it. But we could give a different princess blue. Pink! I love Aurora in pink, but she's only in pink for maybe a minute out of the film total. This is how her dress looks most of the time. Blue! Put her in the blue, put Cinderella in the silver. It's great, guys. It makes more sense. It works better. I like it better. This is part of the proof that they're separate characters from the film characters, because they're wearing dresses that they didn't necessarily wear in the films.
Yeah, obviously, again, they're gonna be similar. I'm pointing this out again because I just thought of, if movie Mulan and Disney Princess Mulan met, their response would probably be,
yes.
It would be the Spider-Man pointing meme.
It is quite similar, actually, to how there's all these different Spider-Men. You put two versions of Spider-Man together, they'll have the same canon events. Certain parts of their story remain intact.
Specifically if you put two Peter Parkers in a room. Obviously, any Peter Parker and Miles Morales are not going to be all that similar, aside from a few basic moments like bit by a radioactive spider and stuff.
So they'll have similar stuff happen, but they're not quite the same. Specifically, the Disney princess is made to sell stuff in a very specific way, and so certain plot points and character ideals can be ignored. And you can also throw them in whatever clothes you darn well please. Apparently. You see that dress there, guys? You see that teal dress? With the purple seashells? Never in the film. Not once. Not once. You know what is in the film? This. That's in the film. Is that a great suit for her? Not really. But it's in the film. You could put her in that. Or any other kind of dress. Or put her in like the teal dress, except make it green to match her tail so it doesn't look bad on her, because that teal does not go with her hair, even slightly. Put her in the pink. Or put her in green. Or you could put her in purple for all I care. Put her in something other than that ugly teal.
Put her in the silverish dress she appears in at the very end of the movie that honestly looks more like Cinderella's dress.
Anything. Not the teal. Jasmine's already wearing teal, and she does better with it. She looks better in the tealish color than Ariel here. Leave it to Jasmine. Alright, guys. You've been asking about it, probably. I'm here to answer it. Why aren't Elsa and Anna Disney princesses? First of all, they're way too successful. They make way too much money. If you put them in the Disney Princess brand, they're gonna overshadow the other princesses. Because the point of the brand is that all of the princesses, all separately, come together and lift up, right? If you put Elsa and Anna in, though, with the other princesses, it's going to be overshadowing them, and they're not going to make as much as a whole. They're going to buy just Elsa and Anna, and not the other stuff, and that's not what they want at all. And for a fun lore reason, if you want one, Elsa and Anna, you'll note, interact. They know of each other. Naturally, they're sisters.
Yeah.
How are you going to put them in the pink void? How are you going to explain why only they are capable of interaction when no one else is? It's hard to do, so they don't. Instead, they came up with this solution. Gave them their own brand, Disney Frozen, which is also the answer for Encanto. With the wild success of their films, they decided that it would make more sense economically to just have them have their own brand that could be partnered with Disney Princess, but never together. They can be sold in the same box, but with a line. In the same aisle, but with a distinction between the pink, and then you very clearly see the switch to the Disney Frozen blue. You'll notice this next time you go to a store that's got a lot of toys. Find the Disney aisle, watch as the pink switches to blue. It's actually quite interesting. And that is also the answer for Encanto. They were like, wow, Encanto is doing really well. But if we add just Mirabel in, people aren't going to be happy because they want to see their other favorite characters be the princesses. And if we add multiple of them in, they're going to interact.
Yeah, then again, you run into the issue of why are Elsa and Anna interacting when everyone else is in the pink void?
Exactly. And besides that, especially when it first came out, Encanto was so popular, they would have just ignored the other princesses completely. It just would not have worked.
Yeah.
And another interesting fun fact is that when they were creating the toys and merch that they were going to sell for this film, they thought surely Isabella, the flower girl, would be the most popular, because she was their classic Disney princess.
No, obviously, the more modern, nerdy glasses wearing Mirabel's gonna be more popular. I see that look on your face. What are you about to say, Jax?
You would think that maybe the main character would be popular instead. No, they liked Louisa.
Alright,
The buff woman.
that makes sense.
They liked the very strong woman, the more masculine one, which was a clue, Disney. It was a clue that maybe we don't like Cinderella anymore. It was a clue. Anyway, Louisa way outsold their expectations. Isabella way undersold. Whoops!
I like all three of them. I like all of the characters in that movie because they're all really well-written characters.
I like them all. Fun fact, first time I watched Encanto with my dad, the second he heard Bruno speak, he was like, Lin wrote that for himself, didn't he? So, with that, they were like, we're gonna keep Frozen separate but next to the Disney Princess brand. And they even started referring to them as the Disney Princesses and the Frozen Queens.
Which makes sense, as neither of them are princesses at this point. One of them is a queen, and the other one is a goddess, I think? What happened at the end of Frozen 2 was wild.
So, basically she's a nature spirit, but she's also never removed from office as queen. So technically she's also still a queen, and they're just both queen, but Elsa's never in Arendelle, so she's not. Anna is like acting queen, and Elsa is like technically queen, but never there. It's weird and complicated, and I don't want to get into the rules of the monarchy, because that's complicated nonsense.
And not what we're here to discuss.
Nope, that's for someone else's video essay, which there probably already exists.
Yeah. Moving on.
Moving on! Next. I told you we'd get to her. I told you we'd come back to her. Merida. There was a problem with Merida, but first we'll talk about what we want to talk about, which is the plot of her movie. It's a fun movie, Brave. It came out June 22nd, 2012. June 22nd, 2012. And there was this big hype when they were going to add her to the lineup, because it was a Pixar film, but they worked it out with Disney. She was going to be a Disney princess, and we knew this from the beginning. There was all this hype about how she wasn't going to have a love interest, and it was great, and she was going to have a coronation at the Disney parks, and she was going to ride in on a horse, and it was going to be amazing and beautiful and awesome. And then the day comes, and we're introduced to Disney Princess Merida. And we were not pleased, guys. They flatten out her curls, they give her a weird sort of smirk, half smirk facial expression that doesn't make any sense. They make her waist smaller because it needs to be smaller, guys. It's stupid. And they just completely remove like most of her personality. We were not pleased.
If I can find an actual picture of Disney Princess TM Merida, then I'll put a picture of it on screen.
It might be here. And if it is, you see what I mean. It's not okay. It was not okay. We were not pleased with it. Petitions were going around and everything. We're not happy. And Disney releases 2 statements total. First one basically says, yeah, we changed your design. So what? You're not going to do anything about it. Because, Disney. And we continued to be upset. And continued to be upset. And eventually Disney was like, wait, they might do something about this. Just kidding, guys.
We totally meant it to be to just be a marketing stunt the whole time. Totally.
It was just gonna be temporary because she wanted to dress up for her coronation. And everyone looked at each other and they're like, this is not correct, this is a lie, but we'll take it if you're changing her back.
Yeah.
We'll take it. And so they do another redesign of her, and it fixes the most egregious of her mistakes, such as returning her waist to its normal size, which is already smaller than most people's. Disney has a problem with that one. The Disney waist size, not accurate, guys. So that's a fun fact. Anyways, it fixes some of the most egregious changes, but it doesn't return her to herself. And she's still in this dress, which you can see even in the picture I have on the slideshow. If you watch that film, that dress was something she was not comfortable in at all. And this is an interesting thing, because people started to realize, hey, we don't like how you're changing these girls. And this same thing happened with Mulan, except there wasn't Twitter, and her film had already been out when she became a Disney princess, so we weren't really seeing it happen in real time the same way, so the uproar wasn't there as much. But we started to be like, hey, no, this sucks. Stop it, Disney. And Disney was like, this sucks? But you've liked this for like 50 years. Well, not 50 years, like 20 years. So what now? What now? Is the
We
question.
don't understand her. She's from the other studio.
Indeed. Because she is from the other studio.
Yep. That's my favorite punchline from the scene you're about to talk about.
Indeed. This is quite an interesting scene. If you'll notice in this picture, they're looking at each other, interacting with each other, possessing of personalities. Elsa and Anna are there. A character that's the Vanellope. I don't know her last name, but Vanellope, she's there.
I don't know. I'll put it on screen.
Boom. And she's there. And they're interacting. And I don't know if you watched the movie, but in case you didn't, essentially what happens is that they outright mock the Cinderella story. Mock it. And here's where they finally put into effect the idea of what if we absolutely despise Cinderella? And we want our princesses to be more modern and more tomboyish. And I think they explored that more with putting Raya in, because if you'll notice, at least for right now, they haven't put her in a dress or sparkles or anything. They've kept her, I believe, pretty much true to her film design. Which is interesting. And I think what this means is that Disney is going to adapt to the future and let the brand change and adapt so that people still want to buy from it. Because that's what makes the most sense.
Yeah. I really like the idea of, like, they bring the princesses who they changed back to their original style, but the princesses that were like the Cinderella types, who they didn't need to really change to make them more Disney princess. They don't change so that they show this is what it used to be, this is what it is now.
Yes, and I think the idea of having them interact in sort of this green room like Wreck-It Ralph does is a great idea. I think it's fun.
I think it would be like, so Sonic did a thing recently called Tales Tube, where they just in like sort of a fun way talk about they have all the characters interacting in fun like event like coffee shop AU style ways, and have them hanging out and discussing what's been happening in the games in the past. And I think it would be really cool if Disney does something like that for the princesses. They could have them actually interacting, have them making jokes about Cinderella and the classic princesses, all that stuff.
Yeah, that's what we think would be the most fun.
I have no idea if that will happen, but it'd be cool if it does.
It'd be cool, even if it wasn't something necessarily canon, just a thing to do. It might be fun. There is always the possibility that Disney clings to Cinderella and stays with it. But I think that it makes the most sense for them to adapt, and that's probably what's going to happen. So that's probably the future, is the new princess. The Rayas and Moanas and Meridas and Mulans. That's the future that I think Disney is looking towards and working towards.
I never noticed that before. 3 of the tomboyish princesses have M names.
And, yeah, 3 of them end with an A.
Yeah.
Anyway. And with that, that is what I have to say about Disney princesses. Did I mess up in a major way, do you think? Do you just disagree with my opinions? Do you agree with me? Do you have any thoughts or feelings at all? Get in the comments and tell us about them.
And until next time, watch the videos on screen right now, subscribe, check out their TikTok, and bye!